Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of F1 2021 My Driver Career Mode. I am back. I quit over the radio in the last episode in the Russian GP after we DNF'd for the 6th time this season due to a mechanical failure on just the 3rd lap of that GP. Like I said, quit over the radio, but we have come to an agreement to have me return to the Aston Martin team here for the next GP in Singapore. It would look really bad if I just decided to quit and call it a F1 career on the season at least there, just because we've had terrible luck. So we don't want to go out that way. So I have returned. We are back for my favorite GP of the season. We always seem to find something. Singapore is my favorite track on the calendar. I always am able to run really well here, even if the car is not that great, just because I love the circuit so much. I just kind of can hit everything here well and not make many mistakes, and obviously not making mistakes at a track like Singapore is very important. So we come through into the GP weekend here, and a little bit awkward of course with the Aston Martin team considering what happened in the last episode, but we were just trying to put that behind us, move forward, and have a good GP weekend here in Singapore. So we come through into just free practice one here, getting of course back to normal, getting back into the swing of things after that really awkward Russian GP, and the car was feeling pretty good actually. I felt like I had a pretty competitive car under my belt here this time in Singapore, so I was excited to see what we're going to be able to do for the GP. Now there is rain scheduled in qualifying, so that's going to be a bit of a curveball, so we'll see what happens there. We are unfortunately, after the mechanical failures, taking a 10 grid place penalty, so we will not be starting in a great position. The best spot we can really start in is P10, so it's going to be very unfortunate that that's happening, but nonetheless we're going to do the best job we can here, as like I said, practice was going very well. We actually topped the board in free practice one here, just barely half a tenth over Lewis Hamilton. As you see, our teammate of Sebastian Vettel was down there in P9. So we come through into qualifying and look at the conditions. For the first time this season, we're going to throw on the wet compound tire. Now, when it comes to the GPs, we've only had rain in one GP, and that was in Canada, and that was for about 10 laps, and that's the only rain we've had in a GP this season. It's been crazy how you could say dry this season has been. Maybe towards the end of the season it's just going to hammer down on the rain every GP or something, because in all of the F1 games I've played with career modes off of YouTube and on YouTube, this is the driest season we've ever had in terms of the GP. So it looks like it's going to continue here into Singapore. Like I said, no rain forecasted for the race. So we come through to Q1, and my first lap ended up being all we needed to get into Q2, but we didn't make it very comfortably. We were just barely in there. P14 is our teammate of Vettel up there in P11. He had a lot more pace than I did, and I only made it by about 0.3 of a second over Esteban Ocon there, down in the 16th spot in the Alpine. So we come through into Q2, still in a position where we need the wet compound tire. It was looking like we were going to need the intermediate in Q3. The rain was going to let up a little bit, so I was excited for that, but once again it was more of a one and done here in Q2 as well, now as our lap would be just good enough to get us in. We come through to cross the line, we go P7. Our teammate of Sebastian Vettel ends up getting eliminated here from Q2, so he will start the grid in P12 as we advance into Q3 here for the Singapore GP. So far, things going really well in our quote-unquote return with Aston Martin, although we never actually ended up leaving them. But we come through into Q3 for another one and only attempt here now on the intermediate tire, so the conditions had let up enough for us to be able to throw on this faster wet tire here, as we were just behind Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. As you guys know, the championship battle right now between Lando Norris, Lewis Hamilton, Perez, Bottas as well, all of them in the mix still here, and this is going to be a big GP here, a grueling GP. Singapore is, you never know what's going to happen in this one. There's always some curveballs here that get thrown at us, so it's going to be an exciting GP, I think. But this was a relatively good lap, actually a really good lap, I will say, here in the intermediate conditions. The conditions were getting better as the session was going, and that played into my favor here, because I was one of the last drivers to make a lap, so that would actually put me up across the line P2, but then it would end up being P3. But we qualified P3 here in Singapore, as Max Verstappen would put it on pole, but unfortunately we have that 10 place grid penalty on the way here for the GP. So we will be starting probably 12th or 13th, depending if anyone else takes penalties. Let's head to the grid.
Here we go then, it's Formula One in Marina Bay once again, and welcome to all of you at home who join us today for this fascinating race around the baking hot, horribly humid, but very beautiful streets of Singapore. We're here at the Marina Bay Street Circuit today, located in the heart of Singapore. The circuit consists of 23 corners, 13 to the left and 10 to the right. It's a track that's incredibly technical, so don't expect to see the drivers taking too much at full throttle. Anthony Davidson is here once again for today's Grand Prix. Let's start with Aston Martin. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Finn starts from pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Verstappen, Sergio Perez, and Gasly, Sainz, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, and Sebastian Vettel. Russell, the rookie, they've taken a grid penalty. Antonio Giovinazzi and Latifi, Ocon, Joe, Callum Eilers and Charles Leclerc. Mick Schumacher and Lance Stroll brings the grid to a close. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today?
Ready to go green here, lights out from the Singapore GP. It is going to be a two-stop race for us here tonight under the lights in Singapore here. We're starting on the medium compound, then we're going to go to the medium compound, and then as well to the soft compound to end the race. So 2 stops. If safety cars come out, we could try 1 stop, but we'll have to wait and see what happens here as we would kick off this formation. Lap championship contenders up there in the mix along with Bottas. Now Verstappen took a grid penalty. He moves down a few spots, it looks like, but Bottas, Norris, Hamilton, they're all up there in the mix as well, and Perez here as we would get to the grid and get ready to go. Lights out here for the Singapore GP. We don't want to start down here in P12 for this GP, but we've got a good history at this track. Let's see if we can continue that tonight. Now it's going to be 5 red lights. It's going to be the lights out and we are underway in Singapore. Bottas leads away, but it's not a great start. He has to lunge over to the left-hand side to cover off Norris, who's up the inside of him. Hamilton 3 wide in the background, in the middle with Perez, as well as one of the AlphaTauri BMWs. Verstappen up there in the P3, right on the gearbox of both Bottas and Norris as they continue side by side into the right-hander. A terrible start for Lewis Hamilton, who's trying to keep his championship hopes alive, in a championship that he's really been in control of most of this season here in the midway point. Now, as you can see, Norris so clear, and away he goes now as Bottas is under pressure from Verstappen here. Now, as you can see, though, it looks like Bottas will hold on to second place. Perez slips through into 4th, and Hamilton down to 6th place after a miserable start to the GP. That is going to be a huge hit to him here. As you can see already, Lando Norris pulling out a bit of a gap here. The British driver out in front, the championship leader. He's been so strong lately here, winning so many GPs. It is unbelievable where he's from that pace. Of course, McLaren, a very strong team currently, and that is the team that we're going to next season. Now, do stay tuned for an announcement coming up from them at some point here about the future of what that team is going to look like. There you see the AlphaTauri BMW. I believe that was Pierre Gasly there just behind, or just in front of Lewis Hamilton, and then he's got Tsunoda just behind him. Then you got Daniel Ricciardo as well as you got the Ferraris of Sainz. Leclerc is not having a very good start to this GP. He's quite a ways back now. Vettel just in front of myself as well here. As you can see, Ricciardo settling in currently, but it was a clean start for myself. That was kind of the main thing I was looking for. Just get through these opening corners here without picking up any damage, and we were able to do that pretty easily here. Now, as you can see, Leclerc all the way towards the bottom of the grid with his grid penalty, but Lando Norris leads the way at the conclusion of lap 1 here, as I'm going to come through to complete this first lap in P12. So we got some work to do, but we would get to work very quick here, as I was just behind George Russell, and it wasn't long till I had an opportunity to be able to overtake the British driver here. Now, as we head towards that DRS straight away, that's where I would be looking to make the pass. No DRS yet on lap 2, but I had my ERS on overtake, and I make a lunge to the left-hand side by side, down into the heavy left 90-degree braking zone here now, and we're sure enough going to be able to pass George Russell in the Alpine and move through into 11th place behind our teammate of Sebastian Vettel, who currently holds on to P10 here. And now, as Carlos Sainz runs in P9 just in front of him in the Ferrari, they're both on the hard compound tires, so we have more grip, we have more speed than both of these guys currently in this GP, and we can't let that go to waste. We come through to the start of lap 3, DRS enabled. Now, unfortunately, as you can see, actually, Vettel has a bit of a lock up there. there into turn 1, but keeps it under control. But unfortunately, I couldn't quite get Vettel here on the DRS for a few laps to come through to lap 4, and I was actually still behind him here now, and he was right on the gearbox of Carlos Sainz, but I was looking to get closer and closer here, and then by the time we finally came through to lap 5, I am right on the gearbox of Sebastian here now as we get that DRS activated. He's got the rear wing open, but I am right on him. I make a move to the right-hand side by side with our teammate of Sebastian Vettel, the 4-time world champion here. Now we've had a few battles this season with each other, but they've all been clean, and we come through to move up into P10, a nice little quick, clean pass right there on Sebastian Vettel, and then we waste no time at the end of lap 5, DRS open again, and we're to the inside of Carlos Sainz there, the Spaniard, side by side down into turn 1, but he won't really put much of a fight up, and I will move now up into the 9th position. Really good pace so far in this Aston Martin. It took me a bit longer than I would have liked to be able to complete those passes on both Carlos Sainz as well as Vettel, but we made it happen, and we were 6 seconds behind Daniel Ricciardo at this point, who was on the soft tires. So those soft tires are going to fall off pretty quick, and that was being proven. I feel like we actually chose the perfect strategy to really benefit ourselves now, as at the end of lap 7, both Ricciardo as well as Gasly had made their way into the pit lane, and then it wasn't long until we see the other drivers. Yuki Tsunoda comes in, Lando Norris comes in as well, and I was expecting to see Hamilton, Perez, Bottas come in within a lap or so, and the same for Max Verstappen, but they actually stretch out their run a little bit longer than Norris and the other drivers like Gasly as well as Ricciardo did, because we come through to lap 10, and I'm closing in on these guys here now. Hamilton as well as Perez, he's on the medium compound actually, so I'm realizing, oh well, they stayed out longer because they're on the same compounded tire than me, but I am setting a blistering pace so far here in the Singapore GP. But then as we came through to lap 13, here comes Lewis Hamilton into the pit lane. He puts on a second set of medium compound tires, and then a lap later, here comes Bottas in from the lead, as well as Perez, and Verstappen had pitted, and that left me out on the track because there was actually a strategy change. So the team wanted to leave me out longer and put on the soft compound instead for my first stop, while everybody else is on the medium compound. So I felt like this is a good opportunity to get really good pace in the middle of the run to try and actually maybe even hunt down the leaders. So we come through into the pit lane, and so far so good here in the Singapore GP. I'm loving this team right now, even after what happened in Russia, because they've been nailing everything with strategy. We come in, we put on the soft compound tire, a very swift, clean pit stop here, and we're going to head back out on the track now. Sainz and Vettel currently both on the track still on those hard compound tires, but Bottas goes by. Lando Norris is going to go through as well, but we're in a net P3 I think right now, because Verstappen, I don't know what happened to him, but he must have had a really poor pit stop because he's way behind both Gasly and Ricciardo. So things are looking pretty good for us right now, and we're going to have really good pace because they're on a slower compound tire, and we're relatively close to Norris already. So by the time we come through to lap 16, we're within DRS range, as Max Verstappen's actually, though, out of the session here in the Singapore GP, and the safety car is deployed here in Singapore midway through the race. And Verstappen, he had a mechanical failure. You see the smoke pouring out of the back of his car, and that would be the end of the day in what's been a miserable season for him and a winless season for the defending champion. So the safety car was out. Lando Norris, there's a bit of stuff to unpack here. Lando Norris pitted for another set of medium compound tires. I stay out, I'm in P2. Vettel gets a free stop kind of, as well as Carlos Sainz, so they remain in the top 10. But now I have been presented a dream scenario here in Singapore. Everybody around us has to pit on the medium compound tire. I decided we're going to take a risk and try to stretch these soft tires to the end of the race and make these guys hunt us down after they pit. So we've been presented a dream scenario to where we can now win the Singapore GP, and we get back underway. Safety car is out. We're back underway on lap 19 of 31, and Bottas actually caught me sleeping a little bit there. He took off at the perfect time to really catch me off guard, and now I wasn't really too concerned. We have a faster tire than Valtteri Bottas, and he still has to pit along with Perez, Hamilton behind us. So right now, like I said, this is dream case scenario. If there's no more safety cars, I think we can probably win this GP. The only problem is, towards the end of this race, our soft tires are going to be falling off a lot if we try to push them to the end of this GP. And maybe if someone else stays out on the medium compound tire, well, we're going to be struggling compared to them, and we're going to be losing a lot of time. So it's not necessarily a free win that we're looking at, but it's a pretty good opportunity. We can win the Singapore GP with that safety car coming out when it did. And I did not waste any time. We have DRS. We open that rear wing side by side with Bottas, and we are going to be down into the left-hander around the outside, clear of Valtteri Bottas. We take the lead on lap 22. We just have the faster tire, more grip, and there really wasn't anything Valtteri could do, especially against the straight line speed of my Aston Martin. But as we came through a few laps later, lap 23 coming towards lap 24, we had now opened up the gap by over a second, but my soft tires were already starting to fall off because my gap that I was gaining was starting to dwindle. It was only going up by about a tenth or two per lap at this point if I was lucky. So Bottas is minimizing the gap he's losing, but you can see he's still, everybody pretty much, not everybody, but a lot of drivers up here still have to pit. And at the end of lap 25, coming to lap 26, Valtteri Bottas comes into the pit lane. Along, he's going to bring Perez with him, and then eventually Carlos Sainz, he was actually going to pit as well. So what that would present us is an Aston Martin 1-2 dream scenario all of a sudden here in the Singapore GP. And then Lando Norris, of course, he's got a lot of speed, but I don't know what happened. I couldn't find anything in the replay, but Lando Norris was oddly off the pace. He was not closing in anything on us here. So now we are looking at a 1-2 finish for Aston Martin. We were 8.7 seconds ahead, but then those soft tires started to wear. The feeling of those tires was going away, and down comes the gap. It's not over yet, everybody. We're coming to 3 laps to go, and Vettel is closing that gap quick. Now to lap 29, it's down to 5.3 seconds here. He is closing very, very quick. I was pushing. You can see I managed to go green in sector 1, but still, it wasn't enough. Down to 4.2 seconds, but 2 laps to go in the Singapore GP. Norris has gotten passed by an AlphaTauri BMW. That's how you know he's struggling, and he's going to get passed by Daniel Ricciardo. Down to 5th place goes Lando Norris there as I clipped the wall and actually damaged the front right end plate of the wing. A silly mistake from myself, and we don't use flashbacks. We try not to use flashbacks here in this career mode, so I have to suffer the consequences of the silly mistake I just made, and that gap would come down even quicker than it already was. It would be below a second as we were coming through to the final lap of the Singapore GP. Vettel is right there. He makes a move. He's got so much more downforce. We're side by side towards turn 1. Vettel takes the lead, but I lunge it up the right hand side here now as we're gonna have a last lap scrap here with our teammate of Sebastian Vettel as we continue to struggle here. Now as I hit the wall, I use the wall to turn my car. I damage the wing even more. It's yellow on the right side of the front wing. I send it up the corner. Vettel doesn't give us space. We make contact there. We come together. We were sideways. We save it. We have DRS here now, and we're not done yet because I want to win Singapore, but so does Sebastian Vettel. I'm gonna lunge it up the left hand side. I'm gonna lock up the tire. We slide into the barrier, and myself and Sebastian Vettel are head on into it. We lost our front wing completely. We get the car back going, and Vettel is right there, but it's not over because here comes Pierre Gasly as well as the McLaren duo of Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo in the background here now as chaos has ensued on this final lap here in a last lap battle for the win with our teammate of Sebastian Vettel now as he's going to fight back up the inside once again, and I just can't stop the car. I slide off, nearly head on into the barrier. Vettel has damaged Gasly to the gearbox of him, and now they're going to have a scrap here as that's an embarrassing final lap for myself here in Singapore as Vettel leads the way. Norris and Ricciardo side by side there as you saw Ricciardo go wide, and there goes Lando Norris into the final podium position all of a sudden. But now it's Sebastian Vettel leading the Singapore GP in a GP that he has won many times before, and it looks like he's about to win it again now. He has damage versus Gasly, who doesn't, but you can't really pass through this portion of track unless you're absolutely desperate. I'm hanging on for dear life in the background now. What a just game-changing final 2 laps, an embarrassing final 2 laps for myself there as we made so many mistakes, and obviously with the damage I fought as hard as I could, but it made it even worse and nearly costed my teammate the victory here in Singapore. Sebastian Vettel will win the Singapore GP, a second win on the season. Gasly on the podium, Norris as well. I'm hanging on just by a thread, and we're going to end up finishing in 9th place in the Singapore GP. I cannot believe we just threw the win away like that there, as Aston Martin has done me wrong, it felt like many times this season, and now we kind of just repaid the team the favor in embarrassing fashion. Let's head to the podium for the celebrations.
Aston Martin deserved the win today, and they got it. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
It was a question of right place, right time today. We were looking at an entirely different race before the safety car came out, but they were able to take full advantage after the field had been bunched up.
I can see them on their way out to the podium now. Aston Martin are really making waves in this sport, and what a special race it was to see them earn the top spot.
There you see the finishing order. I could have taken a flashback, obviously, after I hit the wall on the front wing on the right side, but I don't want to use flashbacks in this career mode. If I do something stupid, I need to pay the consequences for it instead of having a flashback and then not showing it and acting like it didn't happen or something. So, embarrassing mistake right there, and we end up falling behind Sebastian in the points now, but Aston Martin remains P4 in the constructors as Lando Norris increases his point lead by somehow getting on the podium with 2 laps to go. He was P5 and then he ends up on the podium here on the final lap and is over 30 points ahead. He's got over a full race lead over Lewis Hamilton, but Hamilton had over a full race lead recently. So this championship battle isn't over yet. We still got, what, I think 7 GPs on the way, if I'm not mistaken, as we head into the Japanese GP in the next episode. I'm excited for that one. Hopefully we can bounce back. It was a nice return with Aston Martin, and hopefully it remains the same way for these final GPs here now. But that does it for me. If you guys enjoyed, you know what to do. What a wild GP it was. We had the dream scenario, and I threw it all away. Unfortunate, but we can't do anything about it. I'll see you guys in the next one for the Japanese GP. Have a great day, everybody.